All right, so you're diving deep into the world of Transformer AI today. You've sent over some pretty fascinating material, and let me tell you, I'm excited to break it down with our expert here. By the end of this deep dive, you'll not only know what Transformer AI is, but you'll also get why it's causing such a stir. And trust me, there are some real-world applications that might just surprise you.
It's definitely a game changer, and the speed of advancements is truly remarkable.
Okay, so before we jump into the now, let's rewind a bit. Imagine older AI trying to understand language, like those RNN systems. It's kind of like reading a sentence one word at a time, forgetting what came before by the time you reach the end. Not exactly elegant, right?
Not at all.
Yeah.
That sequential processing really hampered their ability to grasp the bigger picture, those crucial relationships between words that might be spread out across a whole paragraph.
And boom, in 2017, Transformers enter the scene. Suddenly, AI isn't reading word by word, it's taking in entire chunks of text simultaneously. It's like the difference between piecing together a puzzle and seeing the whole picture instantly.
A perfect analogy. That's the power of self-attention, the heart of what makes Transformers so unique. It allows the AI to analyze all the words in a passage together, finding connections even across long distances.
All right, let's unpack this self-attention thing. It sounds a bit like AI suddenly gained consciousness or something.
Huh, not quite. Think of it this way. Each word becomes aware of the other words in its vicinity, figuring out which ones are most important to its meaning.
So it's like each word is asking, hey, who else here is giving me context? Who's influencing my role in this sentence?
Precisely. Let's say you have the sentence, the bird didn't sing because it was tired. An older AI might struggle to figure out what it refers to, but with self-attention, it can immediately see the connection to bird and tired understanding the context.
That's pretty slick. But earlier you mentioned something called word embeddings. How does that fit into all of this?
Word embeddings are the foundation. Imagine turning words into numerical representations a language computers can understand. Each word gets its own unique set of numbers, almost like a fingerprint, reflecting its meaning.
So it's not just slapping random numbers onto words. There's a method to the madness.
Absolutely. Words with similar meanings end up with similar numerical patterns. Happy and joyful would have embeddings that are close together, while happy and elephant would be far apart.
So the AI isn't just seeing a jumble of words, it's seeing a map where the words' positions reflect their relationships. That's pretty clever.
It is. And what's fascinating is that this map isn't static. As the AI learns from more data, those embeddings become more refined, creating an increasingly complex and nuanced understanding of language.
Okay, so we have this landscape of meaning built from word embeddings. Then self-attention lets each word analyze this landscape, figuring out which words are its close buddies, contextually speaking. But then you also mentioned this thing called multi-head attention. Is that like giving each word multiple personalities?
How? That's an interesting way to put it. Think of it like reading a book multiple times, each time focusing on a different aspect. The first time, you're engrossed in the plot. The second time, you're analyzing the characters. The third time, you're picking up on subtle themes.
So it's like having a team of word detectives, each with their own focus, combing through the same sentence for different clues. One is looking at the who, another at the why, another at the how, and so on.
Exactly. By combining these different perspectives, the transformer gets a much richer, more complete understanding of the text. It's not just surface level, it's diving deep into the nuances.
That's amazing. It's like having a whole team of AI brains working together to decode language. This all sounds incredibly complex, though. I bet it takes some serious computing power to pull this off.
It certainly does. These models need massive amounts of data and processing power to really get going, but that's also part of the reason we're seeing such rapid progress. As those resources become more available, the AI can tackle even more challenging tasks.
That makes sense. It's like giving those AI brains an upgrade in both size and speed. But I have to admit, all this technical stuff is fascinating, but I'm really curious to see how this translates into the real world. You said transformers are already impacting our lives, so how exactly are they doing that?
Well, for one, think about those AI assistants we use all the time. Things like ChatGPT, Bard, even Copilot. They're all powered by transformer technology.
Wait, seriously? So when I'm casually chatting with ChatGPT, I'm actually interacting with this incredibly sophisticated transformer model. That's wild.
It is, isn't it? These models have become incredibly adept at holding conversations, generating different creative text formats, translating languages, all thanks to those advancements we talked about.
So speaking of translation, it feels like we've gone from those clunky online translators of the past to AI that almost gets the nuances of human language.
It's a remarkable leap forward. One of the big wins is how these models now handle idioms. You know, those phrases that don't translate literally but have a specific meaning in a culture?
Right, like raining cats and dogs. I'd love to see what an older AI would make of that one.
You'd probably get something like feline and canine precipitation, which completely misses the point.
Yeah.
But transformers can actually understand the figurative meaning behind those phrases and find the right equivalent in another language.
So it's less about word-for-word translation and more about capturing the true intent behind the words.
Exactly.
Mm.
And that makes communication between different cultures so much smoother and more meaningful. It's not just about understanding the words themselves, it's about understanding the culture they come from.
It makes you think about all the potential applications for this kind of technology, breaking down language barriers in education, business, diplomacy, heck, even just casual conversations. The possibilities are huge.
They really are. It's exciting to think about how transformers could help us connect with people from all over the world on a much deeper level.
It's not just about connecting with people, though, right? It's also about making information itself accessible to everyone, regardless of what language they speak.
That's a great point. Imagine a world where educational resources, news articles, scientific research, all of it is instantly available in your native language. It could be a game changer for global understanding.
It's almost like reversing the Tower of Babel story. Instead of creating confusion, we're using AI to bring languages together and foster a shared understanding.
What a fantastic way to put it. And this actually brings us to another area where transformers are having a major impact. Search engines.
We touched on that earlier, but I'm really curious to dive deeper into how this is all changing the way we search for information.
Think about how most people use a search engine. You type in a few keywords, and the engine tries to find matches on websites or documents.
Right, it's like a giant game of keyword bingo.
Exactly. But the problem is, keywords often don't capture the full complexity of what you're actually looking for. People use different words to express the same idea, or they might be looking for something implied, not explicitly stated.
It's like when you're trying to find a specific recipe, but you can only remember a few ingredients, not the name of the dish.
Perfect example. Or imagine researching a topic for a school project. You might not know the exact terminology, but you have a general idea of what you're after. Older search engines would have struggled with that.
So how do transformers change this? Do they have some magical ability to read minds?
Not quite mind reading, but close. What's different is they can analyze the entire search query, the context, the relationships between words, even your past search history, to really figure out what you're trying to find.
So it's like having a super smart librarian who understands what you mean, not just what you typed.
Exactly. That's the kind of intuitive leap we're seeing. And this is just the beginning. As transformers keep evolving, those search engines are only going to get smarter and more personalized. Imagine a search engine that anticipates your needs before you even type them out.
That would be pretty mind-blowing. It feels like the search engine is becoming less of a tool and more of a partner in the whole research process.
That's a great way to think about it. And this idea of AI as a partner actually leads us to another exciting area, content creation.
Okay, this is something I've been super curious about. I've heard a lot about AI writing tools, but I haven't really had a chance to explore them. How are transformers shaking things up in that space?
Well, at a basic level, you can use them to improve the quality of your writing. They can catch grammar mistakes, suggest better word choices, even help with structuring sentences.
So like a grammar checker on steroids.
Exactly. But it goes way beyond that. Transformers are being used to generate entire pieces of content, articles, blog posts, marketing copy, even creative writing like poems or scripts.
Hold on. Are you telling me I could ask an AI to whip up a blog post about, say, the history of coffee and it would just do it?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Of course, the quality depends on the model and how it was trained, but the potential is incredible.
It really does sound like science fiction. But I have to admit, part of me feels a little uneasy about AI taking over creative tasks. What happens to human writers in this scenario? Do we all just become obsolete?
That's a question a lot of people are wrestling with, and there are no easy answers. Some see these AI tools as a threat, while others see them as an opportunity.
Where do you fall on that spectrum?
I think it's crucial to remember that AI, in this case, is a tool. And like any tool, it can be used for good or for ill. It really comes down to how we as humans choose to use it.
So rather than thinking about AI replacing writers, maybe it's more about AI augmenting human creativity.
Precisely. Think of AI as a writing partner, a brainstorming buddy that can help you generate ideas, overcome writer's block, and polish your work. It could free up human writers to focus on the big picture stuff, the strategic and creative aspects, while the AI handles the more mundane tasks.
That's a much more optimistic way to look at it. And it's not just about writing, is it? I imagine these applications could extend to all sorts of creative fields.
Absolutely. We're already seeing AI being used to create music, art, even video games. As this technology keeps advancing, the possibilities are practically limitless.
It's like AI is becoming a new kind of creative collaborator, one that can help us push the boundaries of what's possible in art and expression.
And who knows, maybe someday we'll be talking about AI artists and musicians winning Grammys and Oscars.
Now, that is a wild thought. But before we get too carried away with AI-generated symphonies and masterpieces, let's bring it back down to earth for a bit and talk about some of the more practical applications. Things like healthcare and education, where this technology could have a truly transformative impact.
Those are two areas where I think AI has the potential to make a profound difference in people's lives. There are already some really exciting developments happening.
Let's start with healthcare. How are transformers being used to actually improve healthcare outcomes?
One of the biggest challenges in healthcare is the sheer volume of data that doctors and nurses have to deal with on a daily basis. Patient records, lab results, research papers, you name it.
It's like trying to drink from a fire hose.
That's exactly it. And that's where transformers come in. They can analyze that mountain of data and pull out meaningful insights that can help with everything from diagnosis and treatment planning to drug discovery.
So it's like having an AI medical assistant who can sift through all the noise and find the important signals.
Precisely. They can even help personalize treatment plans by analyzing a patient's individual genetic makeup, medical history, and lifestyle factors.
Wow, that's incredible. It's like having a doctor who knows you inside and out and can tailor your treatment to your specific needs.
And we're just scratching the surface. Transformers are also being used to develop new diagnostic tools, predict patient outcomes, even assist with surgery.
It sounds like AI is on the verge of revolutionizing healthcare in ways we can barely imagine.
I think so too. And it's not just about improving patient care, it's also about making healthcare more efficient and affordable for everyone.
That's a win-win for sure. Now, what about education? How are transformers transforming the way we learn?
One of the most promising areas is in personalized learning, tailoring education to each student's individual needs and learning style.
So, like having a custom-made curriculum for each student.
Exactly. Transformers can help create adaptive learning platforms that adjust the difficulty and pace based on how a student is progressing.
It's like having a personal tutor for every student.
That's the idea. And they can also provide immediate feedback on assignments, pinpoint areas where a student needs extra help, and even suggest personalized learning resources.
This could be a game changer for students who struggle in traditional classroom settings. It levels the playing field in a way that's never been possible before.
That's one of the most exciting aspects. And it's not just about individual students either. You can use transformers to analyze data at the school or district level to identify trends and areas for improvement.
So it's like having an AI consultant for the entire education system.
You could say that. They can help educators figure out which teaching methods are most effective, identify students who might be at risk of falling behind, and even allocate resources more efficiently.
It sounds like AI has the potential to make education more effective, more engaging, and more equitable for every student. It's a pretty amazing prospect.
I think so too. And as this technology continues to evolve, I can only imagine the incredible new applications we'll see in education and beyond. It's a really exciting time to be following this field.
It certainly is. But, before we get too carried away with all the amazing possibilities, I think it's important to acknowledge that there could also be some potential downsides to all of this, right?
You're absolutely right. Like any powerful technology, we need to be mindful of both the benefits and the risks as transformers become more integrated into our lives. We'll need to have some thoughtful conversations about how to manage those risks effectively.
All right, then let's dive into that. What are some of the things we need to be cautious about as this technology continues to advance? What are the potential pitfalls we need to be aware of?
Well, one area where we need to be cautious is the potential impact on the job market. As AI becomes more capable, it's inevitable that some jobs will become automated.
That's the classic robots taking over scenario, right? It's definitely something people are worried about.
It's understandable. But it's important to remember that throughout history, technological advancements have often led to new jobs being created, even as old ones disappear.
So maybe it's less about robots replacing humans altogether and more about humans and robots working together in new ways.
Exactly. The key will be adapting to these changes. We need to focus on retraining and upskilling workers so they can thrive in a future where AI is a major part of the workforce. We need to think about what new opportunities might emerge and how we can prepare people for those roles.
That makes sense. It's about being proactive and equipping people with the skills they'll need to succeed in this evolving landscape. It's not just about the technology itself, it's about how we as a society adapt to it.
I completely agree. And it's not just about jobs either. There are broader societal implications to consider. For example, as AI becomes more sophisticated, we need to be very careful about how it's used in decision-making processes that impact people's lives.
That's a really important point. Things like loan applications, hiring decisions, even legal judgments. Those are high stakes areas where we need to make sure AI is used responsibly and ethically.
Absolutely. We need to ensure that these systems are fair, unbiased, and transparent. And we need to have clear guidelines and regulations in place to govern their use.
That makes me think about something we discussed earlier, the whole concept of AI bias. If those systems are trained on biased data, they could perpetuate and even amplify existing societal biases. That's a pretty sobering thought.
It is. And it underscores why it's so crucial to be mindful of the data used to train AI systems. That data needs to be diverse, representative, and carefully vetted to avoid embedding those biases into the very fabric of the technology.
So it's about building these systems with a strong ethical framework from the ground up. We need to be thinking about the potential consequences, making sure we're putting the right safeguards in place. It's almost like we're writing a new set of rules for a world where AI plays an increasingly significant role.
That's a powerful way to put it.
Mm.
And it's a conversation we need to be having right now, not after the fact. We have a responsibility to shape the development and deployment of this technology in a way that benefits humanity as a whole.
All right, so we've talked about potential job displacement, the need for ethical guidelines, and the dangers of AI bias. Are there any other potential downsides we should be thinking about? What else should we be keeping an eye on?
Well, there's also the issue of security. As AI systems become more powerful and integrated into critical infrastructure, they become potential targets for malicious actors. Cybersecurity will become increasingly vital as we rely more heavily on AI.
So we need to make sure those systems are robust and well protected against attacks. It's almost like building a digital fortress around them.
Exactly. And there's also the issue of explainability. As these models become more complex, it can be difficult to understand how they arrive at their decisions. This black box problem can be a concern, especially in situations where those decisions have significant consequences.
So it's not enough for the AI to just give us an answer. We also need to be able to understand why it arrived at that answer. We need to be able to trace its logic and make sure it's sound.
That's exactly right. Transparency and explainability will be crucial as AI takes on more decision-making roles.
Well, this has been a fascinating and thought-provoking conversation. We've covered so much ground, from the technical nuts and bolts of transformers to their real-world applications and the potential risks we need to be aware of. It feels like we've only just scratched the surface of this incredible technology.
I agree. And it's a field that's evolving at an incredible pace. It's hard to predict exactly where this will all lead, but one thing's for sure, it's going to be an exciting ride.
So what can our listeners, the non-experts out there, do to stay informed and engaged as this technology continues to advance? What advice would you give them?
I think the most important thing is to be curious. Stay informed about how AI works, explore its potential applications, and engage in conversations about its impact on society. Read articles, listen to podcasts like this one, and don't be afraid to ask questions.
It's all about being an active participant in this technological revolution, not just a passive observer.
Exactly. The future of AI is being shaped right now, and we all have a role to play in making sure it's a future that benefits everyone.
Well said. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Transformer AI. We hope you've enjoyed the journey and come away with a better understanding of this incredible technology and its implications for the future.
It's been my pleasure. Remember, the future is still being written, and we all have a part in writing it.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep imagining the possibilities.